every cell and every organ and every part of our tissue has an electromagnetic field. So it's this summation of information and interpenetrating information, plus this light emanation that our body uses to communicate. And an area that I'm super curious and interested and passionate and still really learning is the realm of sound. And there's a term called biophonon, like phone, a ph, like sound. So we actually also communicate with sound. Our cells actually emit sound. And people, I always forget the researcher's name. There's a researcher in UCLA who's studying sound, and he has a way of measuring a healthy cell and a sick cell. And again, dumbing down the research here, but the healthy cells have this beautiful harmonic sound that we're able to hear. And then cancer cells or dying cells have this shrieking, really, dissonant sound.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Beyond Labels. I'm Dr. Sina McCullough, and today I have a special guest. It's Dr. Christine Schaffner. Dr. Schaffner is a board-certified naturopathic doctor. She's helped thousands of people recover from chronic or complex illnesses. Through online summits, her Spectrum of Health podcast, network of eminence health clinics, and renowned online programs, Dr. Schaffner goes beyond biological medicine, pulling from all systems of medicine and healing modalities, helping patients reclaim their wellness and reveal their brightest light. I love that. You don't have to hear that in a bio, revealing their brightest light. Welcome, Dr. Schaffner.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to connect with you.
So I had the privilege of meeting you in person at the Polyface Wellness Summit this last June. And you are just this bright light that just emanates. To me, your energy just resonates at this high frequency. And I just felt like I've known you since childhood. It's like, like a very special thing. And I said, I got to know what she's doing, right? What does she do to have such a high vibrational frequency? So my first question for you, and we're going to get into all that. My first question for you is, you are an expert in the biofield. Can you explain to us what is the biofield, and is this a real thing? Is there science that's backed behind it, or is it kind of one of these foo-foo, quackery things that people talk about now?
I know, the land of woo, right? I know it's that bridge. And well, thank you so much. And I'm a naturopathic physician, and I've been seeing patients for about 11 years. And my patients teach me, all the time. And I've been, going into this field, I was very open to the land of woo and energy and all of this. And then, really through the lens of, not only looking at my patients through this biochemical model and this biochemical physiology, but the more that I learned about the realm of biophysics and, combining those worlds, the more health and resilience and well-being I saw in my patients. And so I learned to really trust this information, trust these modalities, and, became really passionate about understanding this. And so I am really fortunate to know really wonderful people who paved the way in this conversation. And I want to give a shout out to Dr. Beverly Rubik. She's a biophysicist, and she's at UC Berkeley, and she really got the term biofield in PubMed, essentially. And so she really wanted to find this term that we could use to communicate the information that we're going to talk about today. And so depending on who you talk to, the biofield is this field of information and energy that not only we emit from our physical body, but there's a field of information and energy that surrounds us that actually is a blueprint for our physiology. And so what does all that mean, right? And so when I talk about this, I like to talk about a few things. One is connecting with our heart and understanding, the role of the heart in relationship to the electromagnetic field that we generate in the biofield. And so our heart, we know through conventional medicine, we can measure this electromagnetic energy through an EKG. And our heart produces the strongest electromagnetic field in our body. So as our heart beats and as blood pumps through our body, we generate a measurable field that is measured 6 feet from, our physical body. And so when I think about the biofield, I think about this electromagnetic energy that's measurable. We also know that our brain waves produce energy, and these electromagnetic fields that can be measured through an EEG. So we have the EKG and the EEG, and we can go through all of these things. But the heart and the brain produce this, the signature, this information that helps to make up our biofield. And then we also have the realm of what they would call subtle energy. So this is the realm of chi or prana or life force, or these energies that have been talked about through ancient traditions. And when we talk about the biofield, right, Sina, it's like this new idea, but it's really this renaissance of how we were always, how we are made, right, that we just are coming back into relationship with and understanding. And when I think about that, the way that I really understand this is through the lens of light. And light is, we are made of light. We are light beings in many ways. And there's a very brilliant man who's passed, Fritz Albert Pop, and he really discovered that we produce and cells produce and our DNA emits biophotons. And biophotons are these packages of light information that our cells and our DNA use to communicate. And we actually, emanate and we give off coherent light that also makes up our biofield. And so again, I can make all of this make sense in a moment, but I feel when we think about the biofield, it's okay, these definitions, but how does that really relate to how we're made? So we have the electromagnetic fields that our heart and our brain make, but remember, we have every cell and every organ and every part of our tissue has an electromagnetic field. So it's this summation of information and interpenetrating information, plus this light emanation that our body uses to communicate. And an area that I'm super curious and interested and passionate and still really learning is the realm of sound. And there's a term called biophonon, like phone, a ph, like sound. So we actually also communicate with sound. Our cells actually emit sound. And people, I always forget the researcher's name. There's a researcher in UCLA who's studying sound, and he has a way of measuring a healthy cell and a sick cell. And again, dumbing down the research here, but the healthy cells have this beautiful harmonic sound that is we're able to hear, and then cancer cells or dying cells have this shrieking, really, dissonant sound. And so, when I learned about that, I was like, oh my gosh, right? So this is again, the land of the biophysics of light and sound and electromagnetic fields. And we, I think, really underappreciate and under acknowledge this part of who we are. And this part of who we are, I think, if we bring into the conversation more and more, opens up all of this other opportunity to understand intention, understand prayer, understand connection, understand how we interact with the Mother Earth, how we can also, it's much faster system than biochemistry and this lock and key model. It's this is where things can happen at the speed of light and in an instant. And so this is an area that, again, you're so sweet calling me an expert. I still feel like a student, but it's an area that I really believe is the future of medicine.
I completely agree with you. And the reason I call you an expert is because you are an avid learner, right? I mean, that's what it is. You're a lifelong learner.
Yes.
Those are the ones who don't stop, right? They don't think they know it all. They're humbled. So I love that about you. This is so fascinating to me. So I'd heard, I've taught about the biofield and about how we are actually light and we emit photons. I had not heard of cells actually emitting sounds. That's fascinating to me. So let's kind of bring this to a practical level for the listeners and the viewers. So you laid out nicely that we have this biofield, right? We have this electromagnetic energy, and we have these photons that are emitted and we have sound that's being emitted. So what does this biofield and all this actually do? You know, like in our lives, how is this actually affecting us? And hold on 1 second. My battery's about to die. I'm going to edit this part out.
Oh yeah, no
Plug
problem.
in the cord.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, no problem.
Okay. Sorry.
Oh no, no worries. Yeah. Hey,
my 1-year-old toddles by and she like loosens it. So all of a sudden the computer just went dull, and I was like, oh no. Like, okay. Do you remember my question? So what does the biofield and all of that actually do?
Yeah, it's a great question. And again, my understanding continues to evolve. So it's this, we know it's measurable, we know it's this energy and information that surrounds us. When I think of all of the things that the actual biofield does, it's manifold. I do believe, we think about the biofield, I believe it's how we're also connected to what I would call the electric universe or the unified field or the quantum field. And this is, again, I'm very much a student, but this idea of the fabric of the universe that interconnects us to the unlimited potential that we all have access to. So this is where we plug in, right? This is where we are connected with that universal force that, whether it's God or whatever we name it, it's that, the source of where we all come from, right? So it's that connection there. I also think that not only is it a connection to the, quantum field, but I think that the energy that we are producing, there's this idea of resonance, right? So when we talk about physics, we talk about frequency, which is like a pattern or a signature that in the field. And a resonance is, we use that language a lot, like I resonate with Sina, that's why we have so much fun together, right? We're in harmony, we're in a frequency pattern that's similar enough that there's an information exchange of energy, right? We're in resonance together. So this is also how we are communicating to the outside world, how we can also not to get too out there, but how we can bring things into our life, right? We live a life that we're drawing opportunities, or we're drawing people or experiences to us based on that frequency pattern that we're emitting. So I believe there's this outward information and connection, and then there's also this idea of it being a blueprint. So because of how this information is surrounding us, it also is bidirectional, and it can also help to organize our biochemistry. So the information that's coming, that is basically surrounding us also is a blueprint for our healthy cells, coherent cells, more energy and flow in the system. And then I also believe, Sina, that it's also, again, I learned this from people like Eileen McCusick, that it also holds memories and information. So she has, to illustrate this idea, she has a way of using sound to communicate with the biofield. So she's developed something called biofield tuning, where she uses tuning forks and comes in contact with someone's field and can find where there's what we would call dissonant information, or non-coherent, incoherent, confusing, turbulent information. And when she comes in contact with that, she's done this for years. And so she's mapped out, she sees patterns and themes. Like, for instance, if you have an issue with your father, it's usually on the right side of your liver, and she, talks about the farther out, that's from our kind of like conception. And then we go in as we're closer to life. So there's a timing to the field of how we have information in our system. And then the idea is where we see dissonance or disharmony, she uses sound to create coherence. So kind of like, again, like iron it out, smooth it out, get, that information flowing again. And then that pattern, that energy gets freed up and becomes more coherent communicate to the, the cells to, operate in the way that, is going to be health promoting. So I know this sounds, again, lofty and esoteric, but there is, a lot of science and a lot of people studying this. And, again, I'm a clinician, so I come from the, what works, like how does somebody who's, horribly ill, get better, and what are the tools and things that we look at. And when we have this viewpoint and this lens, I think it gives us so much opportunity to really, really restore someone's health.
I agree. And before we go any further, can you help us feel our biofields? Can you feel it?
Yeah. Oh yeah, this is fun. So this, again, very simple exercise for, wherever you are. I mean, if you're outside, even better, because you could actually, take off your shoes and put your feet in the ground, because that's a really great way to, start grounding and connecting with the earth. But really, a great way to just start, understanding and feeling, this energy in the body is, taking your two palms together and your hands and really rubbing them together very quickly, so just start creating friction and heat and, all that sensation, right? And then just, be playful and curious. And
it reminds me of Mr. Miyagi,
exactly. Yeah, exactly. And so, I don't know what you're feeling, but, you start pulling your hands apart and, I'm feeling heat. I'm feeling this, what we would call plasma, this, electrically charged energy that has, it has a force. You can play around with it. And as I draw my hands out, I can feel it expand. So that is something that I'm feeling. I don't know if you want to comment on what you're feeling, Sina, but I feel that. And then, so we're in the field, like, right, we're in the field, we're between, we're feeling the energy between our hands. And then you can be playful again, and you can actually draw your hands and palms facing towards you, and then have a feel, like, just start being playful. So I'm kind of, I have my eyes closed just so I can be in touch, and I'm, my hands are moving, and I can just feel this, we call it a torus. It's a toroidal field. It's kind of like a donut. But I can feel kind of the outer edges of it, and my hands are expanding, and I can just, there's a lot of energy that my hands are communicating with. How about you, Sina? What are you feeling?
So I feel a lot of tingling in my fingers. I feel the warmth, and I feel, so as I'm playing, move my hands around, I feel like a resistance.
Yes.
It's almost like it gets harder to move my hands at certain distances from my body, and then as I'm moving it out, it's getting easier. And then as I bring it into my heart, I'm feeling more resistance.
Yes. And that's a field of energy that you're in contact with, right? It's a charged area that you're coming in contact with, and that's where the resistance word, exactly. So again, that's I think a great, really quick, tangible way to connect with the energy that we emanate and that's around us. And yeah, I think hopefully you'll hear from your listeners what they're experiencing as well.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. Such an easy exercise. So you said, again, put your hands together, because just for the people who are listening instead of watching. So put the hands together, rub them really fast, like you're Mr. Miyagi, right? And then you slowly pull them apart, right? And you can close your eyes and pay attention to what you feel in between your hands. Okay. So yeah, anybody who's listening or watching, if you want to go ahead and put in the comments to help other people out, what are you feeling? What do you experience during this exercise? Okay. So now we've been able to feel it, right? So it's one thing to hear someone talk about a biofield, and it may be some kind of abstract concept. But again, I want to reiterate, like you said, there's a lot of physics behind this. If you do a literature search, you're going to see the word biofield in peer-reviewed, published scientific and medical journals. So this has now been accepted, right, in mainstream science as it exists, and we can measure it. So now you've also been able to feel it. So say you just talking to us right now, are we able to feel where we have what you would call like the incoherence in your biofield? Can you feel that for yourself?
Yeah, I think we all have these abilities, right? And I think that the more that we're curious and tune in, we can start feeling this. And I think when you're starting with someone, you want to maybe work with a practitioner provider who has the ability to really connect and to walk you through this. But again, being playful, like area, like this, I've mentioned this idea of coherence a bunch, right? So at the end of the day, I've studied this a lot. I'm like, okay, how does coherence? It's a aligned energy, aligned, efficient energy flow in the body, right? And so, when there's coherence, things feel smooth, they feel, easeful. And then dissonance, again, Eileen uses sound to hear dissonant sounds, but dissonance is going to be confusion, chaos, disorganization in the field. And so, to be honest, I don't play around with I'll use a tuning fork in in my own personal life and play around with it, and I can feel areas that are stuck and move them out of my body. But there's no, right, life, there's no right or wrong way of doing this. I think it's just a lot of intention, again, curiosity, playfulness, and just again, if you feel that, let's say you're like, wow, I feel like this whole thing that I haven't felt before, maybe we can walk through some ways to create more coherence in your biofield and more, more flow in your energy system. And I'm happy to walk through that. And then again, there's a whole, amazing set of practitioners and physicians who understand this language who can support you as well.
That's fantastic. So, one thing I wanted to say is that one way that people can feel their biofield is like you've already demonstrated with your own hands. And so when I work with myself, I use energy medicine through my hands, right? Like a Donna Eden style of energy medicine. I love her.
Yeah.
And so I did exactly what you're talking about. I watched some videos from Donna Eden, free videos online, and I just started playing around with it, right? Because like you said, we all have this ability to tune in with ourselves, right? And so I just started moving my hands around, and I did one of her videos on chakra clearing. And and as you're moving like in circles around the one chakra, kind of like I visualize it to unwind it, to remove that, that confusion, that dissonance. You can start, I was moving across my chakras, and all of a sudden my hands started moving differently. It started going up and away from my body on this one chakra. And I was like, oh, okay, that's a spot where I have this dissonance, And so it's amazing once you start playing with it, how much you can feel. And if you just let go, right? Like I wasn't judging what I was doing. I wasn't questioning it. I was just letting my body do its thing, letting my hand move how it wanted to. And it found this incoherence. And then my body, I naturally moved my hand and I shook my hand off my body to like shake the energy out. And it was amazing how it just went away. So, and that's the reason I wanted to have you on the show, so that you can bring this science, this knowledge behind it, so that people become empowered by understanding that they have this ability to heal themselves, right? Using nothing but their hands and an open mind, And to me, that's what's the most brilliant thing about what you do, in your practice, is that you are really teaching people, right, how to tap into their own innate power and to, in essence, heal themselves. I mean, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, no, thank you for saying that. And I completely agree. Like I'm a doctor, but I look at myself as more like a facilitator, a collaborator. And, a big part of, how I look at the body is through the lens of what we call bioregulatory medicine. And I think they have like a really brilliant framework in that. We're innate, we all have the innate intelligence to heal. Our body wants to be healthy, right? And because of modern life and being human and being on the planet, there are these obstacles that can interfere with that, right? That it can interfere with this ability for our bodies to self-regulate and heal. And so there's so many ways to facilitate this. And I love your your example, and I love your experience of what you went through. And many healers, who use their hands are, yes, they've studied all these things and techniques and, have the licenses to provide this. But when they get out of the way, and they allow that energy to work through them and in concert and be led by the patient's body, there is this profound wisdom that the body has to lead that healer to the right place, to unwind the spots, and not to get, again, too out there for maybe some people. But what I also find is, a lot of us, and especially if you are struggling with your health, right? A lot of us have had these traumatic past experiences, right, in our lives. And that, is a vulnerability, just like glyphosate's a vulnerability, and metals and toxic teeth and scars and, all these things. But, trauma too. And trauma can be in our field and in our fascia and in our tissues. And, yes, talk therapy has a place, and of course, but sometimes really for that, trauma to be released and to get out of the way and for your body to self-regulate and heal, it's these nonverbal, somatic, energetic releases that really get the body unstuck, get the body moving. So I see that all the time, and I feel that that's a really, really big missing piece for a lot of people who stay stuck in a diseased state.
I see the exact same thing. I mean, not only with myself, my husband, my kids, but, clients and friends and family, is that we all tend to target the biochemistry, right, on the physical level. And that is important, as you've expressed. But really what dictates how the biochemistry is going to perform, how is it going to react to things, right? And like you already mentioned, the biofield, it's like a blueprint. So, the way I interpret it is, yes, it's important to have your biochemistry working properly, and I studied biochemistry, right? So I'm biased toward biochemistry. So we do want to have optimal biochemical reactions occurring, right? But what I have learned is that that's not regulated within itself, right? There's something greater than the biochemistry that is regulating which hormones are made, what genes are turned on and off, like how many pro-inflammatory cytokines you're making. And some of it is epigenetics, right? The foods you're eating, the toxins in the water, things like that. But beyond that physical being is what you're talking about, is there's that light being, that energetic being, and have someone describe it as the Merkaba, the light body. And that, in my opinion, controls what happens on the physical level. So it's so important to achieve coherence in that biofield so that you can have optimally working biochemistry and physiology. I mean, would you agree?
Oh yeah, yeah. I think it's the blueprint, right, of our biology and our biochemistry. And Bruce Lipton has talked about this for a long time. And it's moving out of that lock and key model, right? Hormone bumping up to receptor, turning on the cell. He even talks about there's this field of information and connection and resonance that draws these things to each other, and then kind of change the conformation and work, right? So I think there's just this is a language that I think needs to be more and more integrated in modern society, because it's a lot of not only how our physical bodies work, but also a lot of how Mother Nature works. And I think it gives us just this whole other lens to see the universe.
Yeah, when you're just talking about that lock and key model, that's what we're taught in biochemistry classes, that like you got this enzyme and it has cofactors, so the cofactor has to find the enzyme has to find the substrate, right, and convert it into this product. And we're taught that it's kind of this random process. It kind of floats around there in the cell until it finds each other, like bumps into each other, and then like the coenzyme bumps into the enzyme, and then it bumps into the substrate, kind of a haphazard thing. Like you said, it takes time, but that is actually how we're taught that these things occur. And I want to, what you had mentioned about that, now we know the cells, for instance, emit a certain type of sound. I believe that these things like the enzyme finding the substrate, and the cofactor, these things are all intentional, right? They have an intent, they have a target of where they're going to. They're not haphazardly going around. And so they must be drawn by the biofield. And I wonder, there must be sound involved with that. Wouldn't you think that even on that individual molecular level, there's sound that's probably attracting them together? I mean, wouldn't you think that's possible?
Yeah, yeah. And as you're talking, I'm just thinking of, all the things I've read and this idea of like receptor antennas. They're like these antennas in the body, right? There's not just, again, this, haphazard, random, kind of like bumping into each other and, turning on the cell. I think there's an orchestrated, this, what we're talking about is this organization of information and energy that we have parts of our physiology are primed and ready to receive. So receptor antennas for electromagnetic waves, receptor, we're wired, Sina, this to receive light and sound. I mean, we have chromophores in our body, right? We have different parts of the mitochondria that respond to certain wavelengths of light to actually propel and make energy. Like, we are, light informs our body and helps us, sound, we're learning more and more about that. I also think, of course, about the fascia and how that is a whole, fiber optic network in the body that, where electrons and protons and light and sound just, work very instantaneously. And that's why you can, in my world, I'll do scar therapy. And that's why you inject a scar in someone's back and then their heart palpitations go away, right? The fascial connection, that we're highly interconnected. So yeah, I agree. I mean, I think in our lifetime, hopefully in our career, this will be more and more part of the conversation to really enhance and amplify the biochemical reactions that are ongoing in our body.
Yeah. And I think it's so one reason why I wanted you to come on the show is because, like you, I think this is so important for anyone who, not only people who want to heal from an illness, but anybody who wants to achieve optimal health and wellness. So, whether you want to lose weight or boost your energy or boost your immunity, like maybe you get sick a lot and you don't want to do that anymore. For all of those conditions, a critical component is your the coherence in your biofield, because all these things we're explaining with enzymes and genes being expressed, like you're doing a great job of explaining how they're all susceptible to these signals, the sound, the light, the energy frequencies, and those are coming from the biofield and such. And if they're not coherent signals, it's going to cause incoherence in your physical body. So what we want to do is try to create coherence. We want to have coherent signals coming in, like from the biofield and such, coherent sounds made by the cells, if you will, so that the body works in coherence. So things are easy, like you said, so you don't wake up and your joints hurt. You can go for a 3-mile walk and it feels like, like you're at ease doing it, right? You don't get that 3 o'clock slump in the afternoon where you need coffee, right? So what are some ways that people can bring coherence to their own biofield?
Yeah, absolutely. This is the fun part, right? And so, through the work of an organization called HeartMath and Dr. Roland McCready, I just love his work and it's just, brilliant and beautiful. They study the effect of the heart, on not only the physical body, they have this whole other way to look at how, intention, heart coherence affects Mother Earth as well. And it's beautiful. So, one way to have a coherent biofield is to, through the work of HeartMath, they've studied, basically the heart rate variability and coherence in the signature that the heart emits when we're either in a positive state, for lack of a better word, or a negative state. So when we are in a state of love and gratitude and appreciation, we actually produce more coherent heart rhythms and more of a coherent electromagnetic signature into the biofield. And so what a beautiful, thing that when we're in these states of gratitude, that our field and our physiology is only in more health and flow. And then when we're in this, these states of like anger and frustration, and not to say you can't feel those, but just move through them, don't stay in them, that creates dissonance and incoherence in the field. So gratitude, having a gratitude practice. I'm sure you have one. I have one, in the morning. I try to, have my little gratitude journal, and I just try to, get into that state where I'm really, really feel in my heart the things that I'm most grateful for. So that can be a really great way to get into coherence. Grounding, how we already mentioned, being in contact with Mother Earth and getting the electrons from, when we're in contact with our bare feet and Mother Earth, that also helps to increase the electron flow of energy from Mother Earth into our physical body. And that allows us to have more energy to produce more, coherent electromagnetic fields in the body. I'm also a big proponent of structured water, and how structured water in our physical bodies, really can also create more coherent information in our physical bodies in our field. That's, I'm sure you probably have had somebody talk about structured water in your community at this point, but structured water is through the work of like Dr. Pollock and Dr. Cowan, and looking at how it's this fourth phase of water, H3O2, that really organizes information and energy, and is a kind of a battery like effect. It increases cell voltage, creates more flow in the system. We become, I think health is coherence, and health is how much structured water is in our body. And we actually, our fascia moves structured water throughout our body. That's why movement is really important to stay hydrated. And then when we're in light, like the sunlight, we actually, especially UV and also on the other spectrum, infrared, those wavelengths of light help to structure the water in our bodies. So if you can get out in the sun, that can be very helpful for structuring the water, and that will translate into more coherence in the body in the field. If you do photobiomodulation in your home, like red, or really it's the near infrared, can be really good, as well as if you have a vitamin D light, like a UV light, that can also be quite helpful. And then, there's so many other things, sound, I have a lot of different tools and things in my office and at my home, and tuning forks can be helpful. Music that you just like, can be really helpful for helping create more coherence. I use two devices in my office. One is something called the Sound of Soul, which this brilliant man created, and it takes your heart rate variability, converts it to music, and plays it back to you, so you're listening to the sound of your own heart, and that creates a lot of coherence in your field. And then there's this like AO scanner thing that I really enjoy, and you speak into it, it finds where there's dissonant information from your vocal toning, and that actually corresponds to different subconscious emotions that they found patterns, and then they give you balancing frequencies for the missing tones, and it like really just helps you feel calm. So it's fun. There's like, I think again, this is the future of medicine, but just toning. I mean, we all have we have all these devices, but if you have access to the earth, the sun, your own voice, like gratitude, we all have access to the things that bring us health.
I love that. One of the things that I like to do is dance.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so like you said, I put on music that
Yeah.
just resonates with me. Oftentimes it's like 80s music, right? Put on my Bon Jovi, and I just dance around the
Yeah.
house. And like, when I'm cooking in the kitchen, that's one of my favorite things to do, is to play the music loud and just dance and kind of get lost in it, and I can go from being completely like in a complete state of like incoherence, like angry, upset, like, feeling betrayed, you name it. And then I turn on music, start dancing around, and like halfway into the song, it's just gone. Like I just released it, and allowed that joy to come in. And for me, music is such a great tool in my toolkit to help me come out of those times of incoherence, So I love that one. And one question I have for you before I move on to the next is, so structured water, there's these expensive pieces of equipment you can buy, right, to to structure the water for you. But I'm a big an advocate of, God gave you everything that you need to heal yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that you can structure water with your intention.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, do you think that you can do
Yeah,
that too?
yeah, no, I agree with you. And I think that, I think we all have access to these tools. And, I have brilliant friends who are trying to make the process easier for people too, because, we're modern life, we can't all just, intend with our water all day long, but the water through, the work of Dr. Emoto and things like that, we know that water responds, and so intention, also sunlight, right? So, sunlight can be very helpful. Some of my friends have made these little traveling structured water devices that my good friend Gina Bria measures and sees if structured water actually comes out of these devices. So there's a traveling one, and I just splurged a bit and got a really wonderful device called the Spring Aqua in my clinic, and it structures the water and adds minerals, and then you can add hydrogen. It's so fun. So there's the water rabbit hole, right? But I totally agree. We need to get the chemicals out of the water, but we can structure the water with thought, love, intention, sunlight, and have healthier water that way.
I think that's so fantastic. Now, a kind of a random question I'm throwing in here for you, and this is for Joel. Okay, when I was thinking about this, about biofields and how you said this, the biofield is one way that we communicate, right, with not just internally, but externally, right? So communicate with nature, for instance. So I started to think, does the soil have a biofield? Right? I mean, there's microorganisms in it. So would you think that it does have a biofield, right?
I think honestly, everything does, right?
Yeah.
I think that all life has this aspect to it. And, as I have dove into my understanding of the biofield, I've also dove into my understanding of what we call the electric universe. And people who study this look at not only the gut microbiota, but soil organisms. And the gut microbiota are electrogenic. They produce electricity, right? So, that's a whole other lens to look at life and our, how we digest food and, all of the, the inner workings of our system. And then, I know that microbes, I read in the soil, they actually build these like grid-like power networks, transmitting electricity, like the soil is electric, right? And so, of course, the soil organisms that are producing this, they create fields, right? Because when we think about what electricity is, it's charge and motion, right? So a charge particle moving through a material or a conductor creates an electrical current. And through brilliant, minds, they found that whenever you have an electric current, you have an electric field, and whenever you have an electric field, you have a magnetic field. So these things are all you can't have one without the other, right? They come in concert. So yeah, I think what a different way to look at our regenerative agriculture, right? We have to support the biofield of the soil, right? The biofields of the soil. And I actually connected Joel with my good friend Gina too, and she's working with farmers to bring structured water to the soil, because structured water irrigation, there are these simple funnels that can structure the irrigation systems to structure the water, actually helps to get the glyphosate out of the soil, as well as restore the microbes' ability to, produce energy and electricity. So it gives me great hope that people like, of course, yourself and Gina and Joel, and we're all trying to figure out how to, regenerate the soil, because that, of course, is, the big message and the big possibility here.
Yeah, and I think this is fascinating because, we all know at this point, okay, glyphosate's bad, and, other pesticides are bad, and, recombinant bovine growth hormone's bad. But, and so we know, okay, choose organic and preferably choose regeneratively grown foods. But, there's all this debate. We're still staying on the physical level, right? The physical level that, because these foods don't have these toxins on it. They don't have these pesticides and herbicides, and they have higher levels of a lot of the micronutrients, the vitamins and minerals, right? So we're still in this culture focused on that physical aspect of why you should choose organic or preferably regeneratively grown foods. But what I love about this is that once you understand that all this, the soil microorganisms and whatnot, the microorganisms, they have a biofield, and you understand the significance of having coherence in the biofield, it gives you a different type of motivation to choose to spend more money, right? Spend more of your time trying to find regeneratively grown foods, because their biofield, right? The biofield of the food that you eat is going to affect your coherence in your body, correct?
Oh yeah, yeah. And I think there's, yeah, all of those aspects. And, there's, I think they've even studied like the biophoton emissions from healthier foods versus non-healthy foods. And we see that information being different. So it's this whole other lens to look at, what regenerative agriculture and really healthy, aligned with nature nutrition offers the body.
Yeah, versus like in a slaughterhouse, for instance, that industrial raised cows, for instance,
Yeah.
then off
Yeah.
to some feedlot and slaughtered, and they're raised in a totally different environment than a place like a Joel's farm, or another farmer who's doing regenerative ag. So that biofield is going to have these emotional imprints on it. The cow's biofield is going to have these emotional imprints on it that are scars of trauma, right? And then so what happens when you ingest those foods? And so I think this has a lot to do with why, like, if I was going to consume my daily diet, and it brings up my my resonance, right? I'm resonating at a higher frequency with the foods that I'm eating, like the regeneratively grown foods from the farm. And then if I went and, like, we just went to Texas, so I didn't have all my foods with me, I was still like grain free and try to get all the organic food I could get, but my diet wasn't exactly the same. And I could feel the difference, in my resonance. I could feel it lower based on the foods that I was eating. And people know this too, right? You binge on a carton of ice cream, and how do you feel, right? I think this, correct me if I'm wrong, but part of this is not just because you ate a bunch of sugar, and it's not just what's happening on the physical level. This is changing your resonance, right? It's changing your vibrational frequency, is it not?
Yeah, no, I think it's a great point, and it's a great way to articulate. We know this, right, in the community that we're in, but it's a great way to articulate how this energy and information gets transferred into our bodies and in our field, right? And no, I think it's, yeah, a really, really great point to tie in and tune into. And yeah, I think that the more that we look at life in this level, the more we see all of the interconnections. We are so interconnected with each other, with the foods we eat, with the rhythms of life, with the planet. And it's kind of that that idea of like how we're all interconnected, we're all one, that it's really hard to grasp. But the more that we look at this, we have to understand that whatever we're doing and whatever we're producing, we have a ripple effect in our communities and in our lives. And we get to choose how to participate and put a positive ripple effect or an incoherent ripple effect. And then all of the things that we're interacting with, how do we look at that? So I think this is the language of interconnectedness. This is the language that Mother Earth is always communicating with us, and it's up to us to tune into, so that we can be as healthy and vibrant as that we are intended to be.
I love that. I could not have said that any better myself. That's fantastic. Okay, so you've totally entertained me, taught me new things here. Our listeners, if they want to connect with you and keep learning from you, how can they find you?
Oh, thank you. Well, I have a website, drchristineschaffner.com, and I have a podcast. Sina was on the podcast, so check out the episode we did together. And I also have a clinic. I'm in Seattle, Washington currently, and I have a presence in California, and we do telemedicine from all over the country. And I work with a wonderful team of naturopathic physicians, and we all do this work together, and it's called Imminence Health.
And you help, right, even through like Zoom appointments, right? Online appointments, you help people to bring coherence to their biofield, right? To kind of to release these
Oh.
spaces of incoherence,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that's really, the work that we do, yeah, every day, and it's layered, and we treat everyone as an individual and how, what their path is. But yeah, we're looking at all of these layers and bring all of it into the plan.
That sounds fantastic. Well, okay, one of these times I'm gonna have to get out to your
Oh,
clinic
please
and
come.
see
Yeah,
hands-on what you do.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, come on, come in. Yeah, we'll have fun. Yeah.
Awesome. All right, Dr. Schaffner, thank you so much for coming here and for teaching us this. I hope you're going to come back because I already have a lot more questions, but I know we're out of time.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me. It's so much fun to connect with you.
Okay, thanks everybody. I hope you learned something. Remember, write down in the comment section what you felt during our biofield feeling and exercise. All right, see you next time. Bye-bye.